I hereby introduce to you Mr. Michael Veazey.
Great. So let's do a new segment. Now that's really, really great stuff. Let's do a new segment about sort of transitioning from, but so this is aimed at a slightly different customer segment, I guess, in this or audience segment, about transitioning from having an Amazon store to e-commerce, your own e-commerce site, if that's cool.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Where do you want me to start? Just in general from the beginning, or?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll ask you a couple of questions, but I mean, yeah, basically for, if somebody, well, I'm one of the people in that category. I've got Amazon. I've been on Amazon for a while. I'm thinking I really ought to have this sort of control and so forth of my own site. Where do I start? That kind of thing. So I'll ask you questions.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Like, once you know that you're going to follow through with the product, and it's like a long-term product, I say that's the time to start your own site. And, I teach a class on this, and almost everyone screws it up their first time. So number one, like the first question I always get asked is, can I do this for like a single product? And let's say I only sell one product. And the answer is absolutely. The way you structure your site is like a long form sales page, right? Where you have your value proposition at the top, and you have all your testimonials and all the good things about your product with an add to cart button at the very end. So your own site doesn't have to be anything complicated. In fact, there's software out there like ClickFunnels that makes it very easy to sell individual products online.
Okay.
The key to being successful with your own site is making sure that the consumer trusts you. Okay, and so there's a couple different elements of that. So one, you kind of essentially, as I mentioned earlier, you have to replicate what Amazon does for you already. So some sort of free shipping, no hassle returns, a phone number, and some sort of contact information. And what's key is that your site, as soon as you land on it, you need to know what your value proposition is, like what's special about your store and what the product is. And you basically just need to instill trust. So that includes testimonials. Like Amazon, you don't need any of this stuff, right? Because everyone knows Amazon. But if you have testimonials on there, trust seals, satisfaction guaranteed, your images have to be up to snuff. If you have these elements, and it's much easier obviously to show you this in pictures or actually websites, but that's like the general gist. You got to get people to trust that if they give you their money, they're going to give you a quality product in return.
Great. That makes a hell of a lot of sense. And I think that's one of the reasons that we're all on Amazon, at least to start with in a lot of cases, because they have that trust factor. Therefore, the conversion percentages are just off the scale good. So
right.
that totally makes sense. So can you give us an example? I mean, we can certainly put links in the show notes. Can you give an example of any well-done e-commerce stores that exemplify this stuff?
You guys can take a look at mine. It's over at bumblebeelinens.com.
Great. Okay.
I basically follow all the principles that I teach. The other thing that I do have to say is, the other thing that people screw up with their own site is they don't have systems in place to bring the customer back over and over and over again until they're ready to buy. So if you look at this, the average conversion rate for an e-commerce store is on the order of 1% to 2%.
Right.
Which basically means that 98% or 99% of the people that come on your site aren't going to be buying. And oftentimes, if someone lands on a site and then they leave and you don't have a way to bring them back, then they're pretty much gone for life, right? They're not going to remember your store. And so you also have to have systems in place. And here's the thing about running your own store. You have to have all this stuff in place in order for it to work. And there's several links in the chain, whereas Amazon, all you got to worry about is getting the listing up, optimizing the listing, and maybe running ads, right?
Okay.
When you have your own site, you have to bring people back. So there's different ways to do it. There's email marketing. There's retargeting. Both Facebook and Google. There's push notifications. All these things that are designed to bring people back to your site.
Okay, excellent. So once you've, just one interesting question for me is the comparison of Amazon and e-commerce, because as I said, I've been selling on Amazon for 2.5 years, getting on for that. And I've never done my own e-commerce site, although I suppose Amazing FBA is kind of a little bit like there's a few paid things for people, but it's certainly not product based. So what sort of conversion percentage would you end up getting if you got your email marketing, your retargeting, and the push notifications about right? What sort of overall, if that's even the right phrase, what overall conversion percentage would you be expecting?
You can't really answer that question because every single medium is different. I'll throw out some statistics for you though. So for example, my better Google shopping campaigns return 6 to 8%. A typical Google AdWords campaign, and this is not with any of that stuff. This is just straight to cold customers, so to speak, on search. My AdWords campaigns return around 4 to 5%. Now, so here's the thing. It's important to have your own site, and this is where you make the majority of the money, is bringing your existing customers back to shop on your site. That's the key, because you have all their email information. And so I have all these email campaigns set up that are, many months long actually. And every time I send out an email to someone who's already shopped from me, I make more money. Whereas on Amazon, a lot of your customers are probably going to be one-off customers because every listing is similar and there's no real brand loyalty on Amazon. So all the things that I do with this retargeting email marketing is designed to bring repeat customers back and establish a brand. And that is one thing you cannot do on Amazon.
Absolutely. And I think that's really, really good that you clarified that, because quite a lot of people get taught in courses, and I suppose to some extent I was taught this as well, and have been sort of trying to think about it ever since, that the idea of building a brand is great and makes a lot of sense. And there's huge reasons why we, basically repeat customer, right? And price as well. But people try and use Amazon as that vehicle, and my experience is that just is not very realistic. I mean, there's a few famous brands like Anker, the phone chargers that are primarily on Amazon and are kind of a brand, but that's kind of the exception to the rule, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, over the holidays, over 21% of our business was repeat business over the holidays. And so that's just only looking at email. If you look at some of our other campaigns, that number is probably higher actually. And these are like very low effort customers to get back. Here's the other thing you can't really do on Amazon also. We have a lot of B2B customers, wedding planners, event planners, who are buying from us for certain situations where they need to absolutely know that something's going to be delivered on time with great quality. And they like to deal with us by phone. So we have a dedicated contact person for these customers, and they order from us in bulk on a regular basis. And we don't even have to do any marketing for them. They just come back to us over and over again.
Okay, so you're really building proper, personal, reliable relationships with people then.
That's correct. And that's, again, something that you can't do on Amazon. Like, no one is going to buy a bunch of things for a wedding, on Amazon sight unseen, and expect the quality and reliability to be there. Like, they have a point of contact with us and they say, hey, Steve, we need our napkins in a certain way and we need them shipped at a certain time at this address. Can we count on you? And of course, we give extra special care to those customers.
Excellent. Well, yeah, it comes down to good old fashioned. At the end of the day, you've used all this technology and a site and email and whatever to bring it down to those few people. They'll pick the phone up to you and you have a one-to-one conversation, or your staff, you or your staff, whichever it is.
Exactly. Yeah. And for our B2B customers, we do that.
Absolutely. Well, that makes total sense to me. So if I'm, as I am, and a lot of people would be, who are listening or watching, would be in the same boat, an existing Amazon seller, what's the simplest way to get myself started with an e-commerce store? It's basically to take one product and turn it into a long form sales letter. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say the easiest way is to either form a Shopify store or go to ClickFunnels. And the $1 million question really is, how do you drive traffic to your site, right?
Okay.
Like, you guys are used to Amazon's marketplace driving all the traffic for you guys. This is where most of the problems are, right? So I would say the two primary channels that you should worry about are Google Shopping, which is kind of like Amazon in itself, right? It's a listing of products, and Facebook ads. And again, it really just depends on your niche. But I would say those are the two primary drivers. For us, I can go down the top three. It's Facebook, it's Google pay-per-click, and organic traffic, and just regular social, primarily from Pinterest and Facebook, actually. Okay,
so organic traffic on Pinterest and Facebook. Yeah, because I suppose anything that's really design oriented is going to go well on Pinterest, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. Right. So, I mean, this is like, how long it's like it's not a 1 minute answer to this, because obviously this is like the entire business model. But I mean, can you give us some basic sort of high level idea of your approach to these different areas?
Give you like a big picture of the entire life cycle of how we kind of bring our products in. So we might, and I'll use Facebook as an example. We might use Facebook to run an ad to like a piece of content where we're trying to get an email address right off the bat. Okay, and so once we get that email address, it goes through, I think it's a 106-day sequence right now, where people on Facebook, they're mainly looking for content, right? They're not looking to buy necessarily. And we're just trying to nurture them and give intro them to our company so that when they are ready to buy, they actually think of us and make that purchase. And meanwhile, every time they land on our site and look at products, we're also running Facebook dynamic product ads in the background to bring them back through Facebook as well. I don't know if your listeners are familiar with that. And I'll just give a one sentence overview. Basically, you're uploading your product list to Facebook, and whatever they look at on your site, they're actually getting shown that ad on Facebook.
Makes sense, right? Yeah, no, that isn't something I know, but I mean, friends of mine are doing dynamic ads, but I didn't really have an idea what it was. So, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and we're doing that on Google as well. We have various offers, like off of Facebook as well. Like we were running this free plus shipping offer right now, where you just have to pay $5 and we'll send you one of our products for free. It's just shipping, $5 for shipping. And the idea here is we're just trying to get someone to make a purchase and spend a little bit of amount of money on us, because we know that once we have them on as a customer, we can sell them additional products throughout the lifetime of that customer. Okay,
so that one metric that springs to mind is, do you have a rough idea what your lifetime customer value is, which is one of those things that's easy to say and really hard to measure in my experience?
It's hard to measure. And it also depends on your audience, right? So this audience that I'm talking to you about with the free plus shipping offer are actually people who are aged over 55 years of age, and they use our products to like decorate their house. So like I said, it depends on the audience. We have another subset of customers who are wedding customers, and obviously those people aren't going to be repeat customers. However, they are much easier to convert immediately, and they're also willing to pay a much higher price point.
Okay, right. So it's really kind of customer segment specific, the lifetime customer value, or at least some kind of.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, that's very, very interesting. So you've got to really balance out the ease of conversion and the price point, and then the long-term kind of value and balance those things out.
So I don't want to scare anyone off, because we're talking about like all these different things, right? Bottom line, if you're starting with a single product, you just need a single long form sales page, and you're going to want to start with Google Shopping and perhaps some sort of Facebook ad to get them to just spend any amount of money at all with your products.
Okay, so the key is really just to get their addresses by.
You want to get their email address as soon as you can, and you want to pixel them so you can bring them back.
Okay, so pixel them, that's the Facebook famous tracking pixel, which means you can retarget them on Facebook or whatever.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, great. So you're starting with Google Shopping and a Facebook ad or two, basically, and take it from there.
And just keep bringing them back until they're ready to buy. Yeah.
Sounds good. Right, the final area I'd love to talk to you about is just kind of integrating this, the kind of bigger picture. Now, obviously, this can get very scary sounding very quickly, so let's keep it simple. Let's say somebody's got a few products on Amazon, is looking to build an e-commerce store of their own, but what's the bigger picture this can develop into? What should we be aiming at? Okay, we may be starting early, but what are we aiming to grow to?
I think it just depends on the nature of your Amazon products. Like, are they like all over the place? Are you selling like a bathroom product and then electronics that don't kind of go together? If you have chosen products that kind of fit under the same umbrella, which is what we've done, then you can create an overall brand that encompasses all of those products. Otherwise, I would say you'd have to create separate brands for the different categories of what you sell.
Okay, so you want some unity within the brand on your e-commerce?
I think it's important to have some sort of unity in the long run, of course. And the idea here is you should treat Amazon like cash flow, so to speak, because the people on Amazon aren't loyal but there's a huge audience there and there's money to be made. But I wouldn't treat it as long-term consistent money, because things can change every year basically, or sooner, right? Like when they made their feedback changes, like a bunch of sellers got their feedback removed and they lost their rankings. FBA fees just got raised last month again, right? This stuff is going to continue to happen. They started gating brands, so like the retail ARB guys, got screwed or shafted, right? And so you should treat Amazon as cash flow and appreciate it while you have it, and realize that the only way to maintain consistent revenue is to find other ways to generate income on your own.
That's so funny that you're saying this, because from a very different perspective, I was basically having a conversation with somebody who'd approached me to be a coaching client, and they basically were trying to extract from me a promise that I could replace their day job. But even though they weren't looking at a larger, I wouldn't say their whole day job, but some kind of money to live on, £1,500 or whatever. And I said to them, I refused to work with them. I said, look, I can't deliver that promise, because Amazon is not a great vehicle for replacing a day job. And I think you just said pretty much the same words. I'm so glad to hear somebody in the e-commerce space say that, because I think a lot of the pitch that people get pitched into Amazon on is exactly that. It's like, oh, it'll produce the consistent income to replace a day job. And I think you're right. It's just too vulnerable for that.
Yeah, it is to a certain extent. And it just depends. Like I've just heard so many sob stories about people whose accounts have been getting banned or maliciously hijacked, or like these feedback groups who come in and just leave negative feedback on your brand new product and just basically destroy it right off the bat. Unfortunately, those things are happening more and more now.
Yeah, I think the thing is that, exactly like you say, if you go in with a clear mind and open eyes, anything can work for you as long as you take it for what it is. As you say, I think Amazon is an extraordinary opportunity. I mean, I was just saying to somebody the other day that I'm on Cyber Monday, just some product that was nothing special that I had suddenly did 103 units in sales and whatever that was in profit, $500-600, something, nothing extraordinary. But, I did nothing that day about it at all. So on the other hand, as you say, there's account suspension, there's negative reviews, there's all the sort of shenanigans that go on. So I think it's just good to see it for what it is. Now, what I love about the e-commerce model that you're talking about is that you're taking a longer term view on it. So let's try and get some kind of perspective on that. You're talking about various ways of getting traffic. Is Google optimization for, what do you call it, SEO? So optimizing to be found by Google. Is that a viable strategy long term?
Long term, yes. Short term, no.
Okay.
It takes a while to start ranking, but yes, we rank #1 for a lot of our keyword terms, and it brings in free traffic. So it's probably 30% of our business today. It takes time to get to that point. We started ranking, and this is back in 2007. We started ranking for our terms within 6 to 8 months. Today, I would say it takes longer. And again, it depends on how much effort that you want to put into it, because a lot of what SEO really is it's outreach. You're reaching out to other people. Well, one, you're putting together really good pages and good content, and then it's just outreach. Getting to know other bloggers or other influencers who are willing to promote your products and link to it. And I would say that if you had like a very simple goal of just trying to get one really solid backlink every quarter, that's actually not a bad thing. That's like not a bad strategy.
So what would you call a solid backlink?
From a blog or a site that's within your niche that has a pretty good domain authority.
Okay, and what is domain authority? How do you measure that?
Okay, so we're going down like another set of weeds here.
A rabbit hole, yeah.
Another rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So the way Google tends to rank sites is based on, one, the page authority and the domain authority. And by domain authority, like you can think of like the Washington Post, for example, has a very strong domain authority. My site has a pretty decent domain authority. Basically, any site that gets a lot of traffic, Google basically rates the content on those sites and gives it a weighting factor, so to speak. So if you get a link from those sites, that link it has more juice to it than like a site that's brand new, for example.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. And that's very interesting. You were saying one solid backlink per quarter. I was thinking you were about to say something like one link a day. So obviously, building links is not an easy business then, by the sound of it.
It's not about quantity. It's about getting good backlinks. And what's funny about all this is that what Amazon is going through right now is what Google went through like in the last 5 to 8 years. Like at first, people were trying to game the system with reviews on Amazon and everything. Amazon's cracking down on that. Same with Google. People were trying to game links, and then Google cracked down on that, and then people had to adjust. Amazon's going through the same transition as Google right now.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So in a way, what you're dealing with in Google as your main sort of marketing channel, or at least one of the primary ones, is a more mature channel where a lot of the sort of strange practices that people have been getting away with, the sort of grey hat stuff, has been ironed out, and it's just a more harder work, but a more level playing field in a way.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And I honestly think that, the next thing that will get cracked down upon is all these emails that people are sending out to their Amazon customers. Like some people are sending out like 4 or 5 emails and annoying people. Like if it gets out of control, I wouldn't be surprised if Amazon either develops their own email platform to limit this stuff, because it's not good for the customer experience.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely on it. And I think friends of mine we've been discussing in a mastermind that I'm a member of that, when is this likely to be coming in? Basically trying to build our own lists and our own outside of Amazon contact with the customers. But it is very hard. As you say, basically what it comes down to is Amazon's customers are loyal to Amazon. They're not loyal to any of us. And I think you kind of need to start accepting it, which is why I wanted to get you on the show, because I think it's a really important progression, because Amazon's so seductively easy to get going with, and the numbers can look so sexy, in which they can on a good day, but that we can get lazy, and then we're very vulnerable to Amazon changing its mind about things.
I mean, here's the problem that I see with the students in my class. They start out on Amazon, and I tell them, like, I frame it like you're going on Amazon to just kind of validate your idea so that you know whether you want to proceed with the website. But what ends up happening is they make so much money on Amazon that they're like, oh my God, why am I bother? Why do I bother even thinking about my site when the Amazon revenue just keeps growing and growing and growing, right? Mm-hmm. And then maybe like a year will pass and they still haven't started their website. And then something bad will happen. And they'll be like, oh my God, why didn't I work on my, but they lost out of a year's worth of customer building. So
yeah. Okay, yeah, so you put your finger on the entire Amazon experience there in a nutshell. It's like it looks good, it looks better, it looks better. Suddenly it looks horrible. I think that mirrors the experience of a lot of people, right?
It is, and it's much harder to take a loss than it is to take a gain, so to speak. Like, let's say you're doing like 100K and all of a sudden it gets halved for some reason. Like, that hurts. Yeah. So more so than, if you never made 100,000 in the first place.
Yeah, you're completely right. I mean, I got a friend that's I know a couple of people now who've had his account suspended for say 2 or 3 months that were doing hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that really, really hurt, And you can see them thinking, crap, I need to revise my business model here. But as you say, by that point, you can't turn on an e-commerce store like that and make it just work.
Yeah. Although, I have friends and colleagues that turn around their e-commerce store pretty quickly. Like, we did it in a year. We made 6 figures in profit in a year. And I've had friends who've made 7 figures in like under 6 months, right?
7 figures, what, profit?
Not profit, revenue.
Revenue, but still, that's still pretty incredible, yeah.
But there's ways to scale an e-commerce store. Facebook and Google are easy ways to do it. Mainly Facebook, actually.
So tell us a little bit more about Facebook. And as you said, we don't want to go too far down too many rabbit holes and scare the bejesus out of people who are just getting started. But tell me a little bit about how you use Facebook, because Facebook ads seems to be one of those things that quite a few people I know in the renewable sort of products like supplements, animal or human, it seems, are using to as a sort of halfway house between purely on Amazon, some e-commerce store.
Yeah, here's the thing about Facebook, and I would say that 80% of the people who try it are going to fail.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because it takes a little bit of creativity and thought, right? Like, it's not like throwing something up on Amazon, you get your pictures and your bullet points good and you're good to go. You got to really figure out who you're targeting. Then you got to put together like a really good creative that emphasizes your value proposition and get people to click on it. And then you need a compelling landing page that actually gets them to take action.
Right.
So there's
Makes
like
sense.
3 or 4 pieces there, whereas Amazon, there's really only like 1 or 2 pieces.
So what would you say is the primary mistake that people make out of that? So it's who you're targeting, the creative stuff, a value proposition, and compelling landing page. Which do you think is the weakest link there?
See, the thing is that everyone screws up different things. So, I mean, every link is equally as important. So, I mean, it's going to be hard for me to sum it up in like a webinar here, but the way Facebook ads works and what to expect, maybe that's what I can do. I can talk about what to expect, is that you're kind of stabbing in the dark in the beginning, right? But you're making very small bets. So I like to put like $10 for every ad set, and then I monitor it. And so what ends up happening is you see this graph, and you're losing money, you're losing money, you're losing money. Yeah. But you're stopping the losers right away until you hit upon something. Okay, you hit upon that audience and the ad that works. And then at that point, you put all of your money on that, right? And then all of a sudden you start making profits. So it's a treasure hunt until you find the right combo. And then you put all of your money on that. And that's how you make money. Whereas most people give up on the losing money part, and they never hit. They never strike that combination that works.
It's interesting you say that, I mean, because Facebook ads is a much more nuanced and sophisticated thing than, as you say, just putting a product on Amazon. But even then, I feel like sometimes in the private label thing, not every product you pick is going to be a winner. And actually, as long as you allocate your capital you have so that you can spread it across a few different things, then I think, again, I was saying this to somebody yesterday, I think your mentality should be, even looking at private label, even on Amazon, looking for the winner and you accepting losses as part of that process. And then phase 2 is profit taking. So this is very interesting that it's the same
Definitely.
sort of thing.
It's a similar principle. Yeah. Except when you're doing private label, the stakes are a little higher, right? You can't do that for like $10.
No, exactly. They're a lot higher. I mean, one thing I'm advocating people do now is just go to China, but so you can get a renewable source rather than the whole retail arb thing where you could go back and find Tesco's or Walmart has run out of that stuff forever. And just go and get a generic sort of, whatever it is in some kind of generic looking sort of white box like this, or maybe with a little bit of their own labeling or packaging, and just get some of those and put them out and see if they sell. Now, obviously, that's not going to work in a very competitive marketplace because that means that, it's not very differentiated, it's not very beautiful, etc. But it's a way of testing whether there's any kind of real sales to be made in a marketplace.
Let me ask you this. Like, let's say you're putting out a white box, like you just said, and you're just putting that on Amazon. Well, the chances of that succeeding are going to be less, right? So how accurate of a test is that?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not an entirely accurate test, of course. I mean, the only way to test, the exact, you need to keep all the things the same, and you need to keep the copy the same and the photographs and everything else, and then you have an exact test. But it's a messy kind of approach. I wouldn't say it's very scientific, but on the other hand, what I'm aiming at is to try and do exactly the thing you were just saying, which is to make small enough tests so that you're not using a too big a percentage of your overall capital up to find your winners and then scale the winners. I mean, it's not easy to do in the private label thing, but I mean, sometimes people will have their own sort of packaging. It's just your supplier's packaging, not your own. And it's reasonably decent. And it's got some kind of brand, albeit you're building somebody else's brand. But it does mean you can actually test whether you can make sales. And then you got all the back end data from Amazon that you don't get otherwise.
I was just curious what your philosophy was on that, because these days I almost believe that you need to put your best foot forward in anything that you release now, because the game is getting more competitive, right? If you just slap on and just try to sell something, even as a test with whatever's already out there in a white box, chances are it's not going to do that well. And so you're better off putting your best foot forward and trying to get the final or something close to the final product. It doesn't have to be the absolute final one. You can iterate on it, but putting your best foot forward, listing something and seeing how well it's going to do.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, at the moment, I'm kind of running a little experiment in the kind of just put up whatever, however it comes to the manufacturer almost kind of thing. And some niches that still works. And I think I'm quite happy to discover those niches where they're still flying under the radar. But you're quite right. Of course, the more competitive things get, the better the quality of the product needs to be. It's just a way of trying to get round, an experiment to get round the idea,
Sure.
At this stage, I can afford to invest in several private label products and have one or two of them not do very well, and I'm not out of the game. But for somebody who's got $3,000 or $4,000, you know, this is a slightly different thing. So I'm trying to find a model that's a bit more viable for other people to adopt. But yeah, I take your point entirely that the level of competition these days makes that unviable for many niches.
Right. Yeah,
So
I was just curious what your opinion was. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion is I'm still totally undecided. I mean, I'm basically see what works. I used to be very kind of doctrinaire about stuff and follow certain schools of thought or whatever. And now I try different stuff, and sometimes things work that I didn't expect. And I'm like, you know what? I'll take the money. I'm happy to be wrong.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's kind of unpredictable. I mean, you can do all this research, and you know, the research might not even look that good, but sometimes it just does well. It's yeah.
Exactly. I mean, sometimes, you know, the realities of consuming, you know, what consumers will actually buy are a bit of a mystery to all of us. But so, Steve, we could talk for hours and hours. I'm aware that, you know, you have other things to get to in your busy life. But I would love for you to sort of just summarize for us. What would your overall advice be to somebody who's just as kind of as we started, but to sort of summarize that, if you're wanting to go into an e-commerce space, what is your sort of game plan for, say, the first 12 months?
Yeah, so I would start out, and assuming you've already found something that you want to sell, I would always proceed with caution and do not buy a large quantity of anything unless you're sure it's going to sell or reasonably confident that it's going to sell. So start out on Amazon by all means, because it has the largest marketplace. I would actually do some research on Terapeak to make sure you have that safety valve. And then once you are making sales on Amazon and you are confident that you are going to be selling this product in the long haul, then start looking at your website right away, because your website is going to take longer to ramp up. So it's better that you start sooner rather than later, and start building your email list and your customer list and your pixels right away.
Excellent. That sounds like brilliant overall sort of advice. Now, Steve, obviously you got an incredible amount of background to share. Really grateful for you coming on. How do people find out more from you? Or you've mentioned a couple of courses you do. How do people get involved with those?
Yeah, so if you head on over to mywifequitherjob.com, I actually offer a free 6-day mini course that'll kind of walk you through some of these things. So that's a really good overview of e-commerce that you can sign up for. You can sign up right there on the front page. It's mywifequitherjob.com. I also run a training class at profitableonlinestore.com where I talk about all these things. And I also run my own conference. It's called the Sellers Summit, where it's a conference that's designed to just be like a learning conference. I don't get any of the speakers up there to talk about any inspirational stories or fluff. Every single session is a teaching conference, and every speaker actually actively sells. And that's going to be in May 18th of this year.
Okay, and where is that geographically, roughly?
It's in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Fort Lauderdale. Okay, so I mean, obviously for Brits, that's going to be a bit of a trek, but I do know quite a few people who are. Serious. The thing is, it's a bloody good excuse to go on a. Oh dear, I'm swearing on my own podcast now, but it is a very good excuse to go to Florida, which is not known to be a horrible place with no sunshine. So I mean, actually, quite a lot of Brits want to go to Florida anyway. So you may actually, you never know, may get some people going there. It's a good excuse to go on a bit of a.
We're right on the beach, actually. We did that.
Oh man, that sounds terrible. I mean, that would be quite a temptation. So really, you offer loads of stuff. I mean, I have to say, like, also that I've looked at the free mini course a while ago, and it is really fantastic stuff. So I would urge anyone who's even slightly interested in this to get themselves over there and have a look at that. So Steve, it just reminds me to say today, thank you so much for coming on. It's been really interesting. Your approach to things is quite different to other people who are just stuck in the Amazon echo chamber. You obviously know Amazon really well, but you have a bigger picture. And I really think that in 2017, more than ever, your voice needs to be heard and that message needs to get out there. So Steve, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.